Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. Firstly, let me compliment the speakers who preceded me here today. It's a hard act to follow. Congratulations. Actually, I was just telling Mr. Botra that I also grew up in East Africa.
So you have to be on
Oh, sorry. On an estate where there was a lot of wildlife also. So with the young speaker here, I had some commonalities and some shared experiences. So I was very happy to hear what he was doing. So I've chosen a slightly more, how do you say, serious subject, which is how do we transform school leavers? Many of you, I assume that today there will be a lot of school leavers here in the audience, into contributing citizens. So that's the theme of my talk here today. I hope I'm able to hold your interest. Some of you may know who that is. That's V.S. Naipaul, Vidya Naipaul. And this is what he said. The world is what it is. Men in this, as the famous Supreme Court judgment says, embraces women. So men, that is people, men who are nothing, who allow themselves to be nothing, have no place in it. And then, let me just elaborate a little bit on this. I think what he meant was that, we should never accept second-class citizenship or never accept defeat. Vidya Naipaul, whom I knew quite well, till we became enemies, but that's another story. But I knew him quite well at one time. He himself had a very hard childhood. To be born in a small island in the Caribbean, which nobody had heard of, and right from a young age, he wanted to be a writer. He had no other ambition, and he had no other aspiration except to be a writer, and to be a writer in what he called the metropolis, that's England. Now, when he wrote his first books and he arrived in London, people had nothing but utter contempt for him. Oh, who is this guy? Which island? We can't find it on the map. I mean, a little island in the middle of the West Indies, Indian origin, and he had a very hard child. He got a scholarship to Oxford. That's how he escaped. But he hated Oxford. That's one thing we shared in common. I didn't go to Oxford, but I didn't go because I hated it on sight. Anyway, so he didn't like it, and then he immediately, without taking any job or anything else, he became a full-time writer. And as I said, in those days, the racial prejudice and other things were very prevalent in England. I'm talking about the mid-50s. Early 60s. People had no time of day for him. He was literally starving. But this is the whole point. He didn't allow himself to be nothing. He set his sights on that goal, and as you know, he became one of the greatest exponents of the English language. In fact, even the English accept that he was one of the greatest writers in English after William Shakespeare. So that's the whole point. I think is a very important message. All of you who are going out into the world, you should not accept defeat. You should not allow yourself to be nothing. There will always be people trying to push you down, who rubbish you, who make nothing of, who criticize you. But I think the important thing is we have to set ourselves a certain goal, and we have to pursue it, and not allow ourselves to be nothing. In my own life, it was the same thing. I mean, not on the same scale. I don't think Vidya Naipaul got a Nobel Prize for Literature, as you probably know. But I myself always wanted to be, whatever I wanted to be, I became. I started my life, as you heard, as a barrister at law at the Bombay High Court. I tried it for 4 or 5 years. I didn't like it, so I quit. I started again from scratch. I went into the corporate sector. I went into Rallies India, and I worked there for 6 years. I didn't like that either. So then again, I started from scratch again as an editor of Business India, the first business magazine in India. And I think Business India was a great success. I think long before Dr. Manmohan Singh, we were the people who started preaching about the message of liberalization of the Indian economy. I don't know, ladies and gentlemen, if you're aware that India, right up to the year 1760, was the richest country in the world. Right up, that's only 200 years ago. And why was that? That's because we were a nation of entrepreneurs. There was no public sector. There was no government interference in business and industry. And the reason today that we are one of the poorest countries in the world, in my opinion, is because there's too much government interference, not only in business and industry, but also in education. Those of you who read EducationWorld know that I'm a severe critic of government. No minister wants to give me an interview. No prime minister doesn't like me. That's okay. But nevertheless, we are...
200% right, sir. I endorse that, 200% right.
Yeah, well, I don't dislike the Prime Minister, I dislike some of his policies. I mean, that's the way it is. And in a democracy, we must practice democracy, not merely pay lip service to it. So we are critics, we are a nation of entrepreneurs, and all of you young people who are leaving and going out in the industry, that's one of my messages that's going to come up, that all of us must be entrepreneurs, whether you're in a job or working for yourself. Anyway, that's coming up. Now the second person who inspired me is Shomi Das. Some of you may have heard of him. He's a Cambridge man, graduate of Cambridge University, and he joined a school called Gordonston in Scotland. And he was a tutor to Prince Charles in physics. After that, he came to India, and he was headmaster of the Doon School, Lawrence School, Sanawar, and then now he's the chairman of Oak Ridge Schools, which are taken over for some enormous sum by a company called Nord Anglia. Shomi is one of the greatest principles in education in this country, has produced. And he wrote an essay for us in EducationWorld where he said, how do you develop character of a person, of young people like yourselves? So he said, these are the 5 C's which you should aspire to achieving. One is curiosity. You must be curious. A lot of people tell us, it's none of your business, why do you interfere? I'm not a popular person socially because I always ask questions. How many numbers, what's your turnover, etc., etc. People say, oh my goodness, you don't have good manners, you're too interfering. But my excuse is, I'm sorry, I'm a journalist, so that's my business. So I get away with it. But even if you're not a journalist, I think you should be curious. You know, you must try and get to the bottom of things. Second thing, one of the ladies speaking before me mentioned, you must be creative. Let's do new things. Why go in the same path? It's no use doing what somebody has done. If you look at Business India, Business World, we went on a completely new path. Nobody ever done it before. EducationWorld is the same thing. Nobody had done it before. It never occurred to a 5,000-year-old civilization to have a magazine on education. Even today, there are none of the big companies or the new big publishing houses in education. And education is fundamental to everything. If you are not an educated country, you can forget about us ever being a developed country. So, creativity and critical thinking. We need to think off the beaten path. Everybody, unfortunately our education system is such that we mug up things and we reproduce what was produced many years ago. I think we need to break out of that. Maybe we need to do that to pass our exams. Okay, but we need to go beyond that. We should always, I'm sure Mr. Bothra and Mr. Dr. Pillai, you all teach the curriculum, you are obliged to teach the curriculum. But you must teach beyond the curriculum. And as students, you must also try and learn beyond the curriculum. The curriculum is like a basic degree, you have to do it. But real learning as what's her name? She spoke before me. Aishwarya, was it? Right. As she said, real learning is way beyond the curriculum. You have to learn what really interests you and master a subject, master a skill. Merely passing exams, all the people who did very well in exams when I was in boarding school are today not doing so well, So that kind of education, as she puts it, is of limited value. Education is much beyond what's being taught in your classroom, and you have to do it yourself. Self-learning is the best learning. I have only one criterion when I went to university, to choose a university. How good is your library? If your library is good, I can teach myself anything. And today all of you young people have a library, the internet. So you should be like many times more intelligent than people of our generation. So you have a great opportunity there. Self-learning is the best learning. You should not rely on your teachers. I'm sorry. Teachers are useful, but you have to go beyond what they teach you in the classroom. critical thinking. Then to make choices. All our life we have to make difficult choices. You know, you arrive at a fork in the road, you have to take the left one or the right one. You have to learn how to make intelligent choices. That's the fourth C. And the fifth one is, what I'm not very successfully trying to do right now, is to communicate. You must communicate what you think, and you must develop communication skills. That's very important in the 21st century. Whether you're in the corporate sector, whether you're teaching, whether you're a politician, whether you're a lawyer, you have to get your message across. You have to convince the judge on the bench. If you want somebody to invest in your company, you have to communicate it to them. If you want your communication skills. So these are the 5 C's which had a great impact on me. I published an essay. You can go to our website, www.educationworld.in, type in Show Me Das, and you'll get the full essay which he's written for us several years ago. Now, as we said, how do we school leavers become model citizens? Model citizens are contributing citizens. Now, the first thing is, a workman, that's a quotation from the Bible, a workman should be worth his wage. I'm sorry to say that in India we find too many laggards and slackers. They arrive at the office, but they don't earn their wage. They fool around, they play on the internet, drink coffee, they chat. Now, your boss can only control you to a certain extent, but I think it's our obligation to earn our salaries and to earn our wages and do a full day's work for the pay that you receive. It's up to us. It's not a matter of supervision. You know, when we are in school, we bunk classes and all, it's a big joke and you become a hero. But now I think that's gone out of fashion today. Today we have to really work and make sure that when we go to an office, we do an 8-hour work. And this can only happen, it comes from within. If you look at our productivity in Indian industry, in Indian government, an American worker produces on the shop floor, produces 10 times what an Indian worker produces. A Chinese, if you look at our agricultural yields, it's not that farmers don't work hard, but they're not educated, but that's another issue. But a yield in France per acre of wheat is 10 times what is produced in Punjab, our #1 state. Why is that? Now, that's the whole point. That we have to work hard and work smart. That's why your education is important. Second thing is we have to pay our legitimate taxes to be a model citizen. When I was editor of Business India and Business World, I met everybody from Ratan Tata and everybody downwards. And I met many people who think they're very clever if they don't pay their taxes. They say, wow, we've got a very good account, we're very smart. But I don't think that's because we all use roads. When we are in trouble, we use the police force. When we are in trouble, we go to the High Court. All that has to be paid for. Don't be like the students of JNU. Yeah, they want everything free. Do you know what's the single room rate in JNU today to live on campus? Per day. 60 paisa. Can you get a room in Jodhpur to live in for 60 paisa? Anyway, it's a small city. Forget about Delhi. And now when they say, no, we are going to raise it to 10 rupees a day. What? They say, oh my God, no, the whole foundations of Indian democracy are shattered. So you have to read, I've written, we have a gossip page in our magazine called Postscript, which I suggest you read. That's our last page, where we trash such people. And we don't hesitate about naming and shaming people. So I strongly recommend, if you read EducationWorld, read it from back to front. So, I've never ever complained about paying my tax. I'm happy to pay it. Because I use public facilities, I go to parks, I have to complain to policemen, etc. Okay. The third thing is, like I said earlier, let's all practice entrepreneurship. You could be working in a job, but you should be an entrepreneur inside the company. Work as though you're working for your own money. We have a big problem in this country. If you see people in the corporate sector and in paid employment, especially in government, they don't practice any entrepreneurship. They're all slackers and laggards. The government productivity in this country is rock bottom. They probably process 8 to 10 papers a year. If you look at our legal system also, productivity is horrible. So, what's the way out of this? It's not merely to talk, listen only to our bosses and superiors do as they tell you, but you must practice entrepreneurship in your own job. I was a regional manager in Rallies India at one time, but I introduced a lot of new practices, at least I tried, some of them failed, but I became an entrepreneur inside the company. And when I was appointed first editor of Business India, it was a totally unknown quantity. I have no previous business journalism, I have no journalism experience, but I practiced entrepreneurship. I said, supposing my money was on the line, how would I do it? And that's the way we made it a success. So, workmen should be work hard, pay taxes, practice entrepreneurship. Next is practice democracy. We need to discuss things, we need to debate. If you go out in social circles in India, if you start talking politics, immediately people say, don't talk politics, you'll spoil the evening. I don't think that's correct. You can practice democracy by talking politely, of course, but having some discourse. What's the point of, I get invited to a lot of parties and social occasions, and people just put food on their table and they think they've done their bit. I get food in my own house, I don't need their food. I don't go anywhere where I don't get some intelligent discussion. I mean, what's the point? Merely to give me food and drink, there's nothing novel about it, and I can do that in my own house. So important thing is, those of you who give parties also, please invite a good party mix where you can have some intelligent discussion. I always set myself a test. What have I learned from this social evening that I've gone out? If I find I've learned nothing, I never go there again. So the next thing is also connected with that, is that debate public issues freely. There's nothing wrong in expressing your opinion. It's all very well to have a constitution, but nobody follows the constitution in this country. Oh no, he'll feel bad if you say that. He may not like it. Well, see, if you don't practice democracy, democracy will atrophy. It'll disappear. We must practice democracy. Debate public issues fearlessly. And the next thing is, have compassion for the underprivileged. I find it amazing in this country. People don't care about poor people. They don't see them at all. I found people going in Mercedes cars and they go to the market where women are selling vegetables, bargaining with them. Like, 1 rupee and 2 rupees. No, I'll take this, what is that? Dhania, free. Yeah. Right. I think, sir, in your classes and all, you should teach people, don't do that. It's not worth doing. In fact, recently I was in Italy, I met, a lot of Bangladesh refugees there, who are like in poor condition, etc., etc., but they're great entrepreneurs. Again, they're ruined by the socialism we practice in this country. So they've gone to Bangladesh and set up, and one man was selling a t-shirt which I wanted to buy, a Rome t-shirt. So I said, how much is that? So he said 10. And then he said, but I'll give it to you at 8. But I said, why? Why are you discriminating against me? I said, I'm not poor. I want you to make a profit. Because next time when I come there, you should be prosperous, then I can buy another t-shirt from you. So I'm not boasting, I hope. I don't want to sound like I'm boasting. But that's the thing I follow all the time. Pay the price. And if you can't afford it, don't buy it. It's either or. And knocking people down is a favorite Indian habit to price. I don't think we should now stop doing that. If you feel it's a fair price, we should pay it. And last but not least, let's promote and propagate QEFA. Now you might ask, what is QA? Quality Education for All. Wow. The point is, ladies and gentlemen, it's no use us middle class people having good education. That's not going to help the country. Everyone must have good education. And this is why in EducationWorld, though our readers are mainly private schools like yourselves, higher-end schools, we are very passionate proponents of raising standards in government schools. Because unless the whole country is educated, we will never become a prosperous country. So all of you, I'm sure you all as educators, etc., we not only have an obligation to our own students, we have to be fearless champions, evangelists for public education. After all, who's paying for that public education? We are. That all comes out of taxpayers' money. And I'm amazed that people don't bother about utter waste of our money in government schools. Teachers don't show up, roofs are crumbling, meals are bad, children sit on the floor, and we, all of us who are paying for that, we should be ashamed. After all, our money is being utterly wasted. People are stealing money out of the government budget. Firstly, the very important thing, I want all of you to please support Education World. We say from day one that we started 20 years ago, this year, this month is our 20th anniversary. And right from day one, we have said, please double the public expenditure on education to 6% of GDP. This was proposed by the Kothari Commission in the year 1967. We are in 2019, never have we ever spent more than 4%, and the average has been only 3.5% or 3%. Why? The answer is we don't have money, but they have enough money. If you look in the budget and study it carefully, or if you read Education World carefully, we are always pointing out that the establishment expenses of the government of India is 20% of the budget. That means that the entire budget, 20% is spent on these 4 million people who are ruling us in this country. It's a total waste of money. Prime Minister has a fleet of jets and cars and this security and that security and this bungalow, and all the ministers they live better than the Maharajas of old. Maybe you should call back the Maharaja of Jodhpur, who might be perhaps more modest than our minister. But I find that even in the media, nobody complains about it. And the people who pay the price of this are the poorest children in this country, the poorest households in the country, because they don't get a half-decent school. You know, there are many so-called educationists who tell me, yeah, it doesn't matter whether the school doesn't look good, doesn't have nice buildings. They can study under a tree. Deep inside the mind of all our bureaucrats and others, that you should study under a tree, like we used to study 1,000 years ago. But we always say in education, the school must be an attractive, and what you've done, sir, is very commendable. You must make it an attractive place where children willingly want to come. That's what you have to do. And the government doesn't know this. They think that, they can study on the floor, it's okay. The teacher is teaching, but why? Children should want to come to that school. And that is one of our mandates. And all of you, I would urge you to speak up on this issue. As we said, practice democracy. Don't let people get away riding roughshod over us. We can all do our bit for that. And last, I think my time is up. Very important thing, please, in your own discussions, when you're practicing democracy, remember that human capital development must get the top priority. No country in the world, no country in world history has ever been rich, except perhaps some Arab countries where they get oil out of the ground, but generally speaking, no country in the world has become a rich country without developing its human capital. Human capital is the most important capital of all. Japan had no resources at all, but in the year 1806, they were a fully literate nation. Today, they're one of the world's richest countries. Why is that? Because they understood that the most important capital is not money, it's not finance, it's not goods, it's not what you produce, but human capital. And that's what we stand for, and I urge all of you all, join with us and emphasize that we must first and above all develop our human capital, otherwise we will never be a self-respecting developed country. Even with the greatest plans and the grandest yojanas, I always say India is a banana republic, because they always say, ye banana hai, ye yojana, that, ye banana hai. So if you don't want to become a banana republic, let's emphasize human capital. Thank you very much.